Welcome back to Carolina Journal Radio. I'm Donna Martinez. Roughly 100,000 teachers are employed in North Carolina public schools, both traditional and charter schools. Now, the sheer size of this group and the influence that the North Carolina Association of Educators, the state affiliate of the largest teacher union in the country, means that teachers garner a lot of attention from elected officials. And right now, that attention is coming from both Governor Roy Cooper and Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest. Dr. Terry Stoops is the Vice President for Research, the Director of Education Studies for the John Locke Foundation. He's been following this back and forth between these two elected officials and teachers and principals and joins us now to talk about that. Terry, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
First of all, give us a sense, if you would, of how big a role that education plays in the state operating budget and kind of the recent disputes over the budget between the Democratic governor and the Republican-led General Assembly.
Well, education is one of the largest expenditures in the budget, and so it certainly garners a great deal of attention. And the one reason why teachers and staff specifically garner so much attention is that because over 90% of the money we spend on our public schools goes to personnel. A lot of people think that it goes to books and desks and those sorts of things, but the cost to support teachers and staff, their salary and benefits, is an enormous cost to the state. So, of course, there's a lot of attention paid to them because they're the largest expense in our K-12 education budget is our teachers and staff. And so looking at teacher pay issues, as the governor and lieutenant governor have, of course, it affects a large number of teachers, and it affects as well the administrators and staff because those teachers are making decisions based on what their pay is and what their benefits look like.
Recent reporting out of several different publications has revealed that Governor Cooper sent an email to all the principals across the state. Tell us about that email.
Well, he sent Christmas is coming up, and I'm going to be the Grinch sort of email to all the teachers, basically explaining why he vetoed Republican budgets that had pay increases involved. And it came from his senior education advisor, Jeff Coltrane, and it was sent to all the principals in the state with the understanding that the principal would then forward it to their staff. And I can tell you that in many cases, at least according to online chatter, that's exactly what happened. Principals received the letter and they either forwarded the email to their staff or they printed out the letter and gave it to each of their teachers and teacher assistants and other staff in the school. So this set off a kind of head-scratching moment where people were wondering, well, where did he get these email addresses? Why would he send them all to the principals? And what's the nature of sending a letter this time of the year explaining why teachers aren't getting a raise?
Interesting. Tell us a little bit more, if you could, about the message in that communication from the governor. Was he saying, here's what I would like to do for you? Or was he really focusing on policy? Because frankly, that gets into a very curious line between appropriate discussion of public policy issues and politics.
Yeah, and I think it crosses the line into politics, talking about wanting to get the General Assembly, the Republican General Assembly, to the table to negotiate teacher raises and justifying why he vetoed a budget that include teacher pay increases. And this is the same story that he's been telling ever since he issued the veto initially, is that the reason why he vetoed budgets that included pretty decent teacher pay increases was because he believed that was a way to get the Republican General Assembly back to the table to negotiate these things. Well, that really isn't how budgeting works in North Carolina, and the hope that he had and the claim that was what was going to happen was really not based on any evidence, because the Republicans never mentioned once that they wanted to negotiate with the governor to discuss teacher pay raises.
What was really interesting a second time was that on the heels of the reporting about the email from the governor came news that the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forest, who is a Republican, Governor Cooper, of course, a Democrat, that the Lieutenant Governor also sent a communication, apparently, to people who are employed by schools. What do you know about that?
Well, this is a different circumstance because the lieutenant governor sits on the State Board of Education and has a formal role in education governance in North Carolina. So it wouldn't be unusual for someone in that kind of position to send a communication to teachers and administrators. And I think that's why the lieutenant governor thought that in response to Cooper's letter, it would be important for him to outline what has really happened over the last few years as far as teacher compensation, and that's what his letter does, is basically list all of the accomplishments of the Republican General Assembly. Those include getting the average teacher pay up to nearly $54,000 a year. That includes a 20% increase in teacher pay between 2014 and 2019, and it included all of the discussion about all of the budgets that were vetoed by the governor, including one budget that included a 9.9% average pay increase for teachers. And so Forrest's letter, Lieutenant Governor Forrest's letter, was just pointing out, here's what happened, and here is what I believe the real motivation for this, for Governor Cooper's letter. And he seemed to imply that it was to make the North Carolina Association of Educators happy and to do their bidding was what the lieutenant governor seemed to imply in his letter.
Pretty interesting. Terry, I know that because of what you do, this is your field of expertise, that you constantly monitor all sorts of Facebook pages and Twitter feeds and chat rooms, etc. What is happening online? What are people saying about these two pretty much opposing views of education policy and teacher pay ideas in North Carolina?
Well, judging from the online chatter, you would be under the impression that everyone supported Cooper and his decisions and his policies, because it's really the Cooper supporters, the supporters of the Democratic Party, that dominate the online discussion. And so you look at some of the Facebook pages and the Twitter feeds of individuals essentially speaking for teachers, but the reality is that this is just a handful of politically active teachers that are active on social media, sometimes during the school day, looking at ways to advance the cause of the Democratic Party and Governor Cooper. And that's really what is misleading about a lot of this online chatter. As you said, when you started this discussion, there are 100,000 teachers, and I would say that there's probably about 100 teachers online that are talking about all of these issues. And of course, most of them support the governor and the Democrats. I think that there's plenty of teachers out there that support Lieutenant Governor, that support the Republican General Assembly, like having lower taxes, like the fact that their pay has increased significantly over the last 5 years, but are just afraid to say so and stay off of social media and don't engage with those who are active on it.
And of course, for any teacher or any citizen in North Carolina who wants to know factual information about the education budget, education policy, teacher pay, etc., you definitely need to be following the work of our guest here, Dr. Terry Stoops. He is Vice President for Research, also the Director of Education Studies for the John Locke Foundation. All of this information available at johnlocke.org. Also, Terry writes frequent columns for carolinajournal.com. Terry, thank you very much.
Thank you.